Hello, my dear friends. Welcome or welcome back. My name is Sarita. Glad to have you here today. I have a short review from Kringle today. This is one of their candles from the fall release 2023 this year, and it is Bourbon Bonfire. And this is what the 3-wick looks like. It's a little bit of a different design than the one that came out in the regular Kringle line. Here's the picture of what the usual Kringle looks like. It's a really nice label, although I think it's photo stocked. I generally prefer that. This is one of the few wraparounds that I actually am okay with because I tend to like more of a neutral situation, but it looks a little tacky. I don't know if you can see, but like the cutouts here are very like clip art. There's some white showing. It cuts off in a strange way, both on the top and on the bottom. And I think kind of looks a little cheap personally, at least when you're looking real close up. From farther away, it obviously looks better. I really do like the copper though. This kind of copper hammered lid. I think that that's really nice. Yeah, so I burned this one as far as I possibly could. As you can tell though, it didn't go all the way to the wick clips. So I was having a lot of trouble with puny wicks toward the end, and I came in at one point and one of the little wicks there at the bottom had extinguished itself, and these two were there, but I'm not gonna attempt to light this one up again. Like I said, really the last few burns were very puny. So I think it's about done. And really I got pretty far down, as you can tell. The notes on Bourbon Bonfire are Tennessee whiskey, golden aged rum, crushed clove, cinnamon sticks, cedar wood, sandalwood, and smoked vanilla bean. I like this one, but I don't love it. And I expected to love it more than I do. So this was a standout in the fall collection, but as we've discussed many times, it's a standout because that fall collection was really bad. And there really wasn't a whole lot there to get excited about. A lot of gourmands and a lot of, frankly, not very exciting gourmands. They didn't perform well. There were very few outdoorsy candles that one would expect, or let alone conceptual ones for the fall season. So it was a real disappointment, especially because the fall season release should be like really great. And last year's Kringle fall release was pretty strong. I can't say that it like blew my mind, but there were some real standouts there and a lot of candles that have stayed around and are continuing to be purchased, such as like Sugar Pumpkins, and I think Gorgeous was in there, and Amber Wood, etc. And of course Sanctuary, which was probably the best candle of the year. This year, this was kind of the best of them, and I think in a stronger collection, it would not have been as much of a standout. This is very much in my wheelhouse, so I was expecting to really love this one, and I liked it a great deal. So it is a ton of wood, which makes sense because you've got sandalwood, you've got cedar wood, and I guess that's it actually. Cedar wood and sandalwood, but I have to say that this smells more woody than those two. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some oak in there as well, which would make sense too, given the barrels that alcohol sometimes are aged in. I don't think it's a boozy candle. I really am not picking up a ton of booze. Even though it lists both whiskey and rum here, not boozy. And I don't even know if it's boozy reminiscent. I really don't. I just don't think that there is. I just think it's a lot of wood, and I'm not getting cinnamon, not getting spice or clove. Well, maybe a little bit of clove actually. Just a touch of clove. Yeah, I would say a touch of clove actually. and some smoke. But I would say it's not as much smoke as like some of their Halloween candles. It's not an overt smoke. It's a very dry candle. And to my nose, it has a little bit of a leather component to it. I mean, it's not like an overt leather, but we've talked in some of the last few candles that we've been doing that unless it's very strong and identifiable, there is a whole range of musk, patchouli, leather, what's the other one? Kind of notes that come across very similar, especially in kind of a rustic wood kind of candle. And if it was marketed as leather, or it was marketed as patchouli, or whatever else, like, or it was marketed as some sort of bourbon candle, would we just go along with it and be like, yeah, it's within a certain broad category and genre, but I don't know that it necessarily comes across. I mean, it certainly is not boozy enough, I think, for it to be such marketed as such a strong booze candle. So if you're going to call it Bourbon Bonfire, I do feel as though you should have some sort of boozy component to it. Although, like, Bath & Body Works got away with their, like, what was it? Coffee and whiskey, which had no whiskey in it. Although this year has a little bit more coffee in it. So they were definitely taking it in a very conceptual direction. If bourbon wasn't listed so prominently in the notes, I would say, well, maybe they were going for something conceptual here. It doesn't really have bourbon in it, but they list so prominently Tennessee whiskey and Golden Age rum. So they are obviously trying to go with a pronounced alcohol component that is just definitely not coming across. So I would say that this is primarily, if they marketed it more as a leather and wood kind of candle, I actually think that that might be more appropriate. As I've said before, this reminds me of the way that my grandparents' house smelled like 20 or 30 years ago. Maybe more than that, you know? You know how like your grandfather like has his like easy chair and maybe a wood paneled family room, you know, and then there's like a leather couch or something like that. That is very much that vibe. And there is something in it, and I said this from the beginning, that is a little bit antique and old-fashioned about the way that this scent is coming across. And by that, I mean kind of like an old school snuff box, tobacco. There we go. Tobacco would be another one that would be in that genre with patchouli and leather, right? An old kind of musty tobacco / leather / like almost like potpourri or something like that, which is where that clove note might be coming in. But it's, like I said, kind of dated. It's dated. And for those who have a very nostalgic scent memory from like the way that your grandfather smelled or something like that, I think you'll really like this candle. But for me personally, I don't have enough of a nostalgic attachment. It just kind of seems dated to me. And very indoors as opposed to outdoors, which is what makes the bonfire kind of weird too, because there aren't damp notes or ozone notes or whatever else to make this definitely an outdoor setting, which is maybe what they were going for with like the kind of subtle Boy Scouts camping like zigzag motif there. I don't know that it reads as necessarily a very strong outdoor candle. It's more of an indoor candle for me. It's very cozy, it's very warm, it's very leather, it's very like wood paneled family room or library from like the 80s. And it's very like kind of generic men's cologne or even a potpourri or something like that. A tobacco, that kind of vibe. And so in that sense, and it came off especially when it was burned in that way. I initially thought that it was just a lot of really nice outdoor wood and smoke, but I have to say that the dominant notes for me that came across were kind of that like living room, leather easy chair, grandparents kind of vibe when it was burned. And I'm kind of not here for it. Like, I don't know. It just didn't hit me. It didn't land in like a really exciting place for me. I'm not gonna lie. And so I wouldn't repurchase this one. I just wouldn't. Strength and throw on it was strong for the first third of the candle. For the first third of the candle, I think it was high in that like 7.5 realm. I don't know that it pushed more than 7.5, but I think it was definitely a 7.5. Unfortunately, after that point, in the second bottom 2/3 of the candle, it was significantly less than that. So I think that it was really kind of coming in at more of a 6 or even less than that, with the caveat being that there were a few times that I burned this one very long because it was kind of having some trouble burning. So to make sure that it was like pulling all the way around, I was having to burn it for like 4 hours. And I do have to say that once it hit that 4-hour mark, I could often get a really strong strength and throw from it. It spent most of its time back in my master bathroom, which is kind of, it's not quite my open concept living room area, but it's still a very large space. So I would say that it did not fill that space past that third of the candle. It did not fill the space unless it had enough time to burn like 4 hours. And I'm finding that with some of the Kringle soy candles is that there's a certain, some of them out of the box will not give you anything more than like a 5 or a 6. But if you get it up to that 4-hour mark, you can often bump it up at least a half point, if not a full point. Yeah. The problem with that though is that it gets tricky once you start burning a candle past the 4-hour mark. Even if it's a soy candle, even if they burn as well as like Kringles generally do. I just don't think that you should have to burn it for 4 hours to kind of get the volume that you want. So in that sense, it didn't burn as well as I wanted it to. As you can see, I've got a little bit of sooting. It wasn't bad, but there was some. The wax got very discolored, and I don't know if you can tell that necessarily. It got discolored, and smelling it, I'm smelling a lot of smoke here. And it's not intentional smoke as from the fragrance. It's a carbon, and it's kind of like a soot smoke. A soot smell, such that like if I had more of this, I would think twice before even putting it into a candle crock. So I didn't love the way that it burned, and this is your 3-wick. This gives you the best chance here of good strength and throw. I would suspect that the 2 wicks do not perform as strongly, so I don't know that you're going to get it up in that 7.5 realm. But of all the fall candles that came out, this one definitely has the chances of being stronger than some of those other ones that had even less strength and throw, etc. Yeah, this is very much in my wheelhouse, and for some strange reason, I just don't love it. I'm just not wild about it. And like I said, I wouldn't repurchase it. And I think that's probably a problem because I am the audience for this kind of candle. And if I'm not excited by it, I just don't know who would be. So that's what I've got for you. I believe this is still available. I believe the 3 wicks are still available, and I believe it'll probably be around for some time because it was kind of the standout for the fall and one of the few outdoors rustic kind of candles. And it may even lean a little bit conceptual, given the spices, the alleged whiskey, and maybe the concept is Grandfather's Easy Chair Kirka 1980. If you're here for that, this is your candle 1000%. That's what I've got for you. Kringle, Bourbon Bonfire. I can't really give it 2 thumbs up, but I'll give it 1 thumbs up. And I will see you in the next one.